The amount of change we're going to see over the next 5 years, 10 years, will dwarf everything that's happened over the last 30. We went from automating pen and paper, right, with spreadsheets, to connecting PCs into local area networks to,
connecting them,
connecting people
to each
locally,
other.
Locally, right, to connecting networks to get the internet, to getting the network effect of communicating people globally. But now we're introducing artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, et cetera. So, and what that enables is the automation of automation, right? And so the people who were writing software, particularly at the lower end, unless you're doing these advanced things, they're gone. Right? The people that
because the software's writing itself. It's
doing itself, right? It's just math. Programmer back in the day, so when I was writing code, it was the algorithms were if this, then that.
Right.
XOR, whatever it may be.
Right.
But you had to guess, right? You had to use your best instance. And then it got smarter and smarter and smarter, and libraries to do bigger and better things. All that is being automated. And so now you have to know how to use that stuff. So either software works for you, or you work for software, and once the software takes over, you're gone. Right? So unless you understand that, you don't understand that the nature of work is changing, the nature of employment is going to change, and from a business, from a stock perspective. If you're in the Fortune 500, if you're an S&P 500 company, if you're in the Dow 30, right? If you're one of the bigger companies, you already know this. And in talking to a lot of these big companies, they know their workforces, and given the supply and demand of stocks, the supply is shrinking, and the demand is going up just as the economy grows. That's probably good news for stocks over the long term, but it's bad news for employment, and it's bad news for people who are disrupted.
Well, and that's part of the thing, right? Is that there's a time when GM was the largest employer, and the companies like GM was what employment looked like. If Facebook's what it looks like, the revenue per employee at Facebook is infinitely larger than any automaker could ever make, or any manufacturer could make.
The difference is the time lag, right? The timeline. So what took 20 years before and then became 10 could be 5 or 3. And so when you start getting that massive amount of disruption in employment, what do? The whole nature of employment is going to change. There aren't manufacturing jobs coming back. There aren't more coal mining jobs coming back. No matter what you do to the EPA, a lot of these jobs are going to be gone. Now, there's still physical things. If you do infrastructure, you can kind of, buy some time, right? Spend more, get temporary jobs to build roads, build bridges, which is all fine and good, right? I think you can get a return on much of those things. But you're going to have to recognize that there are going to be more people out of work. So,
through this innovation.
Yeah.
So essentially what you made the case for is education and job training for grown-ups.
No, I think that won't matter, right? What are you going to go back and learn to do?
What it takes, right? I mean, whether it's finance, whether it's software programming.
Finance, that's the easiest thing. You just take the data and have it spit out whatever you need. Right? I personally think there's going to be a greater demand in 10 years for liberal arts majors than there were for programming majors, and maybe even engineering, because when the data is all being spit out for you, options are being spit out for you, you need a different perspective in order to have a different view of the data. And so having somebody who's more of a freer thinker, and because if automation is being automated, you just learn the tax rules. You just feed the automation the tax rules, and it does the rest for you.
So English majors of the world should celebrate?
I think English, philosophy, foreign language majors, maybe not now, they're going to starve for a while, but that's not even the real issue, right? The real issue is if 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million people have their jobs disrupted, and we see the direction everything is going and how quickly it's going. What are you going to do with them?
And found AI could replace 300 million full-time jobs, including positions in the legal and engineering fields. Let's bring in Martin Ford. He is an author and futurist who specializes in the rise of AI and robots. So let's talk about AI. Are there any jobs you think are safe?
Well, I think in the long run, if AI becomes, truly superhuman in its capability, then perhaps not. But for the foreseeable future, I think there are lots of jobs that are safe. AI is primarily going to impact jobs that are very predictable, routine, repetitive. But the thing to understand is that will include a lot of jobs that we wouldn't normally associate with automation. Often people think about robots in factories being threatened,
That's right.
which is certainly true. But there are going to be a great many white-collar jobs that will also be impacted by this. If you're sitting in front of a computer doing something relatively routine and predictable, whether it's writing the same report again or doing the same kind of spreadsheet analysis, all of that is definitely going to be impacted. So it could be very broad-based.
Okay, so are there any jobs or job categories you think are safe in the short term?
In the short term, what I would say is that if you've got a very creative job where you're genuinely thinking outside the box, coming up with new ideas, generating new insights, then I think that's going to be relatively safe. AI is likely to be a tool that you use rather than something that
I see.
replaces you.
And we're looking at a graphic.
Also,
We were just looking at a graphic. It said nurse practitioners, creatives, choreographers, mental health professionals. So those are fields that maybe are safe in the short term and could maybe be benefited by AI.
Right. A second category there is if you're really working with people and building sophisticated relationships with people, or you need to have empathy, as would be the case with a nurse, for example. That's another area where AI, is going to take a long time before it's going to be competitive.
Okay, so what can you...
those types of jobs.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought, and then I've got an additional question.
Okay, so those types of jobs, and then yet another category would be skilled trade jobs, things like electricians, plumbers, where you have a need for lots of dexterity and mobility in unpredictable environments. We need a very, very sophisticated science fiction level robot to do what an electrician does.
Right, so those are jobs where you have to have a very strong problem-solving capability. So if you are worried that your job could be replaced, is there anything you can do?
Well, you should try to, it's not so much jobs that will be replaced, but tasks, the things that you're doing within the job. So whatever you're doing, you want to transition more so that you're doing more things that can be automated. In other words, more creative things, more things that involve interacting deeply with people, or more things that require lots of mobility and dexterity in unpredictable environments. Those are the three areas that are going to be safest. So make sure that in your career, you're doing more of those things.
And just in the few seconds that we have left, we talk about AI, but I often don't hear people talk about how quickly or how accelerated this change may be. Are you thinking about a huge evolution over the next 5 years, or is the window longer than that?
It's going to continue to evolve, but I definitely think we're going to see huge impact in the next 5 years. I mean, I've been talking about this issue now for over 10 years, and I've seen just dramatic progress already, and it's clearly accelerating. When we see announcements like ChatGPT and all the generative AI that's gotten everyone's attention, it's very clear that things are moving faster. So there'll be a huge impact, I'm sure.
Ati! 逃したか。